Hey guys, welcome! Oh man, this is great. I'm so excited that you're here. This is a real big deal for me. This is my Brand Blaster course. Thank you so much for being a part of this free trial, and if you are purchasing this course, thank you so much. Even if you're checking out the free trial and this isn't for you, please pass it along to someone that you think will appreciate it. And if you're coming from the Boss Project Summit sponsored by Dubsado, I absolutely appreciate you for being here. That means you already have listened to what I know about branding and you're here for more. So that is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. Please let me know that you purchased this, and I will absolutely send you a note saying thank you for that. Actually, when you purchase this, you'll be brought into my email list anyway, so I will absolutely thank you for being a part of this. This is an absolute big deal. So to give you guys basically some free value and let you know what this course is going to be about, there is going to be a lot to break down about branding. For those of you who have come from the branding course within TCC, we're going to rehash some things, but it's going to be coming from a little bit of a different place because, you know, I'm a little bit more mature than I was a few weeks ago when I recorded that. You know, things happen, things change. So wording is important. You know, it's important for you to, even though there are these concepts that you might understand in terms of branding, in terms of creating logos, things like that, there are always going to be things that are continually growing and changing. So there's no reason to stop learning about branding, going through the tides of learning through podcasts, through videos, through listening. That's why I suggested in that course to go check out the Deeply Graphic Design podcast, because they rehash a ton of topics all the time. Same with my YouTube channel, same with my podcasts. So I do the same thing. I'm talking about a lot of this stuff. Really what you're paying for is an organization of all of this process into a beginning process that you can take into your branding endeavors. So if you have a great idea, you're working with a designer, or you are a designer, or you're learning how to be a brand designer, this is the course for you, because this is going to be all about taking an idea from conception to execution and starting to learn how you can even think about branding, especially think about it in regards to yourself. A lot of this is for solopreneurs, people who are 1, 2, maybe 3 people kind of businesses, people who are just kind of doing things from like a bootstrap kind of perspective, doing all sorts of new things and, you know, loving the process of what you do, right? So all of this is going to be for you, because it's going to be about solidifying that why, strengthening your resolve, and learning a little bit more about what it is that you can do as an individual to strengthen your resolve, strengthen your brand. So before we go into this first session, this first segment, as it were, I want to go through some of the details of what this course is all about. I got it listed here on Trello, so I'm going to tell you what all of my tentative course segment names are. This first one is all about why. What is your product? Do you love it? And we're going to talk all about that for the remainder of this segment after I go through this list. Next one is, who are you? Next one is, what do you want to convey? What are you willing to share? Next one is, what is unique about you and your product? The next one is, what do you want your audience to take away? What is your mission? The next is, what elements do you need? Not just a logo. Do you need visual elements for video? Do you need a theme song for a podcast? Visual look for Instagram, colors, that sort of thing. What else do you need besides a logo? Because the branding is more than a logo, as we've already talked about in the TCC course. And if you haven't picked up the TCC course, go to bit.ly/CNote Summit and sign up for that. We can talk about early research, which is all about how to look up, how to do brand research, to look for competitors, search for trends, and kind of stay on the up and up for what fits within your niche, but what's going on generally within the branding world. Then we're going to talk about color theory, just kind of an overview of colors, what interpretations of colors are, how to use them effectively, and how to connect that into your brand. Then we're going to talk about fonts, because I'm not going to tell you all the fonts that you should use, but I'm going to tell you which fonts are kind of in trends right now and which ones to avoid, which ones are kind of cliche to stay away from. And then we're going to talk about types of logos, different sorts of, because logo is a part of a brand. So we're going to talk about the elements of logos. What is that? What do different logos potentially look look like, and we'll also go through some of the 2018 logo trends to sort of break down what's kind of going on these days for logos. Then I'll talk about working with a designer. So a lot of you have businesses that you need to outsource to a designer, and even if you are a designer and you get to a point where your business is scaling a little bit and you're booming, you're going to have to work with other designers, which is going to take a different sort of perspective than just being a designer, right? So there's going to be some interesting stuff in there. Then we're going to go through a little bit more of the process, talk about the sketching phase. Then we're going to talk about questions to ask when someone gives you feedback on a logo, or someone gives you a logo to look at. What are you going to ask your designer, or what should you be asking yourself in order to move the sketch forward? Next will be comps, and then we'll talk about breaking down some of the concepts between looking at 3 final selections and how you can combine some of those elements into a final piece. And then we talk about selecting the final piece and making sure that you're picking the final piece based on what is really working. Then we're going to talk about translating a logo into branding, taking those colors, taking that font, taking that overall style, and translating it into those other elements that we've defined earlier into other pieces, into video pieces, into snipes, into even if you're using subtitles, or if you're doing like an intro piece, or even music and other mediums that aren't visual, how does that translate into your brand voice on podcasting and things like that, or a YouTube channel, for example. And then we talk about what is your brand voice? So what does it sound like, and kind of giving your brand sort of a name and an attitude and a perspective, and really defining that so you can kind of stick to it and learn the points where your brand might naturally evolve based on where the trends are going, and how you can kind of bring that into the future with you. Then we talk about representative identity. What is it that you're putting out into the world as you're going through day-to-day life? And that means a representation of your personal identity mixed with your brand. Like, what is it that you are going to be representing that is just a little bit more than who you are as a person, what you're going to be putting out there, and talking a little bit about some of the tough conversations that we have with people on the internet, and how we can take those and translate them into productive conversations, and making sure that we're not alienating some people who could actually be our audience. And then a couple more segments, one on consistency, about being consistent about your usage of your brand, putting content out there. This is basically about content. The next one is about changing over time, how you can adapt, again, to trends, and it's just kind of like a rehashing of that sort of feeling. Again, another segment dedicated to keeping up with trends. I'm going to talk about the evolution of logo trends and branding trends over time. And then we're going to talk a little bit about speaking your brand. How can you continue to market yourself as you're going through life? When you're in line at the grocery store, do you know your mission? Do you know your goals? Are you able to know it like the back of your hand? If you have multiple products, are you able to spot the correct context to be able to sell to someone? This one's a little bit more about selling than it is about brand. And then the last one's going to be finally adjusting to your audience, because all of this stuff that we talk about leading into all of this is going to be all about leading into your brand and leading into understanding fully who you are and what you bring to the brand. And then after that foundation is created, then discovering who your audience is, right? And that's going to be the really interesting part, is that the audience doesn't come first. The audience doesn't happen right away. The audience happens as a result of you projecting who you are and what the product is, right? It's not the other way around. You're not just trying to shotgun and gather as many people as you can. You're trying to make sure that you're solidifying your brand so that you have a narrow target for who it is that you're going for, right? So at this point, this intro was pretty long, so we're going to separate this into just the intro segment. I'm going to put this on YouTube by itself, and there's going to be a follow-up about that first segment that we go into, why it is that you want to brand and why do you want to do this.